I was going to say good morning, but it's afternoon. It's 1. I've been up early today, which was cool. Been getting up early pretty much every day. Not early, but early enough. And it's the new year. It's January 6th. I don't think I've made a video in a while. And it's 1:01 p.m. and it's 2025. I can't believe it. So I'm wanting to make a live today. I think I'm just going to do it. I have been making videos like this for 2 years. And it's just been me, myself, and I. And I have so much to say, and I just don't share it. And then I've been watching this one gentleman, his videos for a while, and he talks about our gifts. And I think a lot of what just be your most authentic self, just be the truth. But I think a lot of it has to do with I have this old behavior, and I will talk a lot about addiction on my channel, a lot about behaviors, and because they're unraveling, So, like, for me, a lot of what I say, most of what I say is my experience for me, because of me, because of what I went through. I can't speak for anyone else with anything. And I'm getting, just really like, I'm super passionate. It's not that I'm just passionate about that. Okay, and I'm probably going to be all over the place. One of my biggest old behaviors that doesn't serve me anymore, but it did for me being this, like, I'm not saying that I was small and weak, but I was living a life that wasn't authentic to me. And my body was screaming at me that I wasn't. And I was consuming substances, keeping them suppressed. Because that's what drugs do. They suppress our emotions. And I was really afraid to speak my mind, to speak my truth. And so I learned to be, goofy and just to be this like Mandy way, because there was a time where I was taught not to say how I felt a lot of the time. I mean, even for example, when it comes to politics, like I would be afraid to say how I felt because if somebody else didn't agree with me, like I had to have people agreeing with me. And another thing, I just wanted to get on here and be the way, like, this is how I went to the grocery store today. This is what I look like. I didn't want to just come on. And maybe there will be a day where I dress up more and put on more makeup, or I evolve into this more put together type person. But right now, this is the real me. This is how I look 99% of the time, unless I'm going somewhere and I put on a little mascara or something and dress up. But my hair usually looks just like this. And again, will I evolve? Maybe. And so I think one of my biggest challenges is that I cared at one time, it's getting way better. I cared so much about what people thought, and I was such a people pleaser, and it was almost to the point where it was debilitating, to where I'm even afraid to make a YouTube video because of it. It's like, just get out there. Like, who cares? Oh, I cared. People would say that to me, like, who cares? And it's the way that it still affects my nervous system. And I'll talk a lot about nervous system. It's like, okay, what am I feeling right now? I'm feeling a little nervous. I'm feeling a little apprehensive. It's giving me anxiety because I have this old behavior of not feeling safe to say how I feel. Like, I feel like someone's going to argue with me or someone's going to say I'm wrong. Now, somebody that doesn't have the past, people from the past, the way that I grew up shushing me and telling me it's to not speak my mind because it makes them uncomfortable. That's it. Like, maybe I wasn't saying anything wrong. I was just saying things that made them uncomfortable. So I learned that I had to please others for their own, what's the word? Like, for their own safety, not their safety, but for their own comfort. And then I learned how to not speak my mind because of that. And so I really want to give myself and other people we got to give people that have this, give ourselves the grace to let that behavior unravel because it's still hard for me, even though I'm aware. I'm super aware of that behavior now. I am trying so hard to give myself the grace to say, even though I'm aware, I still have this behavior, that it's unraveling. And it has been for a long time. And that's okay. And it's going to take time, just like the drug recovery stuff. It takes time. Like we all say, it's time, time, time. And then my nervous system starts to get all these things and feelings and dizzy and I'm even I'm not even making the live right now, but I'm kind of pretending like I am, and it's making me nervous. Like when I just get on here and talk to myself basically, I don't feel that way. It's the other people. It really is knowing that someone else is going to hear it is what makes me feel apprehensive. And that is such a learned behavior. And so I was watching this guy, an older gentleman. He makes these videos. He's very successful. He talks about God and reads the Bible. He knows so much. He is so full of wisdom. And I really like him. I think he's the real deal. I don't think he's full of shit or anything. I'm not skeptical. I mean, there's a part of me that's like, let me, because I have to be that way, with certain things. But I'm watching him and I'm like, I like what this guy's saying. And some of the things he says and what I've already been learning through my coach, it's the people. Like life is easy. It's people that make it hard. That's something he told me a long time ago. And it's not up to us to worry about what other people are thinking about us. That's God's job. And the fact that we do though, it's a belief, it's a mindset, um, it's a behavior, it's a learned behavior, and it's in our nervous system. There's all kinds of things, and again, it's okay to have awareness of it now, like I do, but to still feel that way. It's like, why do I still feel? I know now. I know not to worry about what other people think of me. But yet, I'm sweating right now. Like, it's so silly. But it's not silly. It's a learned behavior that's going to take time to unravel. And the nervous system to go, oh, I'm safe. And what was I doing for years? I was suppressing my emotions with substances. Now, that's a tricky thing because substances do cause their own. I just thought about I could just share this video and not do a live and do a live later. And then when I went like that, because I was thinking it, and it made me stop in my tracks of what I was thinking because I was like, oh goodness, oh, that's an idea, but oh, I don't have to do it live today. But I don't know how to share videos. So what was I saying? What was I even saying? Just the fact, I don't know, maybe this is what I was saying. Just the fact that I get so apprehensive. If you really, really are stuck in that mindset, you'll think there's something wrong with you. You're broken. You're never going to get out of that mindset. But it's not true. Oh, yeah. What is tricky about substances is that there's all kinds of things that are tricky about them, but they do cause their own nervous system dysregulation. They do cause all kinds of, different substances cause different issues. So alcohol works on GABA, it makes us feel calm in the moment. So then when we're hungover from it and we're drawing from it, we get a little bit more anxiety. Caffeine and other stimulants cause us to be more excited and have more energy. And so when we quit or withdraw, it causes us to be very tired and very depressed and slow and not motivated. And we need that. So it's like whatever the substance causes, it creates the opposite in withdrawal. And that's why we need those substances, and then we get addicted and dependent. And I was thinking about something else because I have all these thoughts that I'm thinking about, there's so many other things I want to say. And I think that this is a very big behavior, like a learned behavior too, that like, especially when people interrupt you, people that are interrupting, or we're interrupting our own thoughts, because we have so much we want to say and we're afraid we're going to forget about them. That's all a bad learned behavior, poor learned behavior. And people can interrupt, and people just want to talk really fast because they have, and people say like, oh, that's ADHD and that's this and that. Maybe, but I do believe that ADHD is from childhood, and that's kind of a learned behavior too, because it's all about how we adapted to survive our best, and our personality just adapted to that way. Um, so yeah, I was just thinking that in my head too, which is kind of like a little bit of an intrusive thought maybe, but it happens for me so much. So like when I am just making videos and I know it's just for me, I don't get as apprehensive. It's still that kind of apprehension, that nervousness, that anxiety of, am I saying all the right things? And then like I can get on a tangent because I do have that kind of, I need to say it all, and that same behavior. It's like I'm interrupting myself. And it's just in the nervous system in that moment. So what I really want to say about, and I probably forgot what I was saying, but because when we get stressed, so I get a little nervous, that causes stress, that probably causes me to have some adrenaline and cortisol pumping through my body. And so then I start to forget. We're not crazy, we're not weird, we're not broken. There's not something wrong with us when we kind of in mid-sentence forget what we're saying, or we're thinking 13 other things in our head. It's the nervous system, but it stems from, maybe from drugs too, but it stems from thoughts and behaviors and ideas. And then that becomes a pattern, that becomes that stuck behavior. And so when drugs come into play, drugs not only create their own problems depending on the drug, like I said, but it also helps keep certain thoughts and behaviors and processes and everything stuck. I really believe that. I mean, that is essentially what drugs do. That's why we do drugs. It helps us to block out certain emotions, but it also helps certain emotions like stay stuck, to where we repress them, to where we don't really fully feel them in a completion. So like for me, let's say that, and there's another really interesting thing about all that like I was creating behaviors to stay in play just so I could consume the substance, to have like a problem so I could have the excuse to drink. And it was all like this vicious cycle. But the behavior gets stuck. So that vicious cycle of the behavior, the pattern of the drug, what drugs do, how they make us feel good, how they make us feel a certain way. But there was a saying that was told to me that people that use substances cannot handle their emotions. So not only can they not handle them, but they also kind of have more emotions, or more, like I said, creating more chaos, creating more emotions so they could drink or use or whatever it is. And like I'm feeling nervous even right now still, because again, that's why I want to make it so clear, and I know I'm repeating myself, that is still just a pattern, especially since I used substances for so long to keep that cycle going. And then everything got down, neurotransmitters and brain chemicals got down regulated, hormones are off for years. And then I quit cold turkey, went through, and that's a whole nother, I'm going to make many, many, many videos about that. And many, many, many. And then all the symptoms that I had, while on substances, the symptoms that I had that were pretty much the same, but just turned up 10 degrees, 1,000 degrees, however much you want to, it was a lot, while I was healing, recovering. And we're always healing. And there's this whole thing I want to say about recovery and all that. But my channel is going to be about growth and learning and just how I feel in the moment sometimes, maybe some plants thrown in here and there, and going to the beach and just really putting myself out there. My goal is to help people, but my goal is to help myself too. Like, this journey has been the freedom and also the path leading me back to my most authentic self that I lost somewhere along the way. And so when I say that drugs suppress emotions, I don't mean that in the sense that we always had, because this is very huge in like quitting communities, especially caffeine quitting community that I know of. Because I'm not really into like quitting alcohol communities, even though I quit alcohol. Um, my nervous system really got super, I want to say, could say fried or just in disarray or whatever from quitting caffeine. But all substances can cause problems. I just experienced a lot with the caffeine, so that's why I talk about it a lot. But I talk about all substances because all substances we don't need them, you know. Especially when we give it time and we let our brain chemicals and our hormones and everything balance, which takes a lot of time. Plus all the emotions resurfacing and coming up, so we can process them to be able to get to the place where we want to be. And it just really, all of that really can take a long time. And okay, I was thinking like 3 or 4 different things. I kind of forgot what I was talking about. But again, that's just a little bit of nerves. That's a little bit of um, stress hormones pumping through my body again and making me, and for forever, I thought something was wrong with me. Oh my gosh, I can't remember what I was talking about. I can't focus. And my main point of all this, because I'm going to talk a lot about substances, but my new, not just theory, but I know this is what's happening to me, that it's a behavior of my mindset. And then I get to a place where the adrenaline starts pumping, and that causes the fogginess. It's so cool. It really is cool. It's okay. And it's so beautiful to have that compassion and grace for yourself when you're going through it, especially when you've been on substances that have been dysregulating everything, to just give yourself that grace that it takes time to get to that calm, parasympathetic, rest and digest state, because we've been in a sympathetic, and we get a little technical. Sometimes I like to get technical. We don't necessarily need to have all that terminology, but I have it in my toolbox, so I use it sometimes. But it really is just about going from the sympathetic, which is the fight or flight, more into the parasympathetic, the rest and digest. That's really what it's all about. But while we're getting there to that more natural parasympathetic state, it's teaching our brain. All this stuff is rewiring, new wiring, we say. And until it gets there, which takes a lot of time, it's going to be up and down. It's going to be ugly, bumpy. Not necessarily ugly. It really is a struggle. It's really hard. But it's also a beautiful journey. I've been saying that for a really long time, because it is the path to freedom. And you know how I'm doing, like I'm messing with this, like that right there keeps me a little bit more focused. Somebody might, tap on themselves, or they might use a pen. All of that is to distract you, because we're supposed to be busy. Like, that's why a lot of people, when they're making videos like this, they'll go for a walk, I believe, or, because it helps when that body's moving. It helps the mind calm down and talk and make things clear. And so I can tell, like, I'm being more busybody right now, because I'm sitting here in a chair, but my mind's going blah, 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 blah. So that's why people say exercise is so important, which it is. But I do want to give a piece of information that I think is really true, but I really experienced it myself, is that when a lot of people quit alcohol, but let's say that they're on caffeine or other substances, and so their body is in that, it's not in complete going back to homeostasis setting, which, I mean, it is. You quit the drug, you quit alcohol, that's really good. But if you're on caffeine still, you're still kind of in this allostatic state, which is like a whole nother, again, some more terms I'm throwing out that I've talked about before with my friend Ani and her videos, but I will make more of my own videos on that kind of stuff. But basically, or you just haven't you just don't have really bad anxiety for whatever reason. There's a whole bunch of different reasons for that. But my point of saying all this is if you are somebody who quit substances and you have workout intolerance, and a lot of people go through this with anxiety in general, I pair it up with the substance use. Some people aren't aware of it with that, but I am. Maybe there's people that never did any substance in their life, which is in my experience, in my knowledge, rare. People just don't know what caffeine can be doing to them or other substances can be doing to them. But let's just say if it is, what makes sense to me is that they just have stress from something else, maybe some type of behavior from childhood or something that they learned or um, some type of trauma. And so they just have a rewired nervous system from trauma, which causes a lot of stress. And so they have anxiety from that, which is huge. I mean, that is very important too. But most people have the trauma too, and they went to substances. So it's like this double, triple whammy, depending on the substances. And they just learn other behaviors like people pleasing and all this other stuff to where they get stuck and all that. And they just go into that repetitious cycle. But again, while we're recovering, while we're healing, to have that grace, that, and I was saying something else, but again, I'm kind of nervous. I am. I'm not going to lie. And I want to be able to say that. I want to be able to say, this is how I feel. And it's okay. Like, it doesn't mean that something's wrong with me. It means that I was on substances plus repressed emotions and certain behaviors, I believe, unraveling. I believe that the tie is off of the hair. Let's say you had your hair braided. I had that analogy. Well, the tie at the end is off. I really do believe everything's unraveling, but there's still that kink in the hair. When you do a braid, there gets that wavy. And that's just how I see it. That's how I've been seeing it now for like a little over 2 years. Or the analogy with the paper. See, my throat will get tight. It's all these like stress chemicals. And then, so this is like an addiction or the behavior, because it can be any behavior. And Gabor Mate talks about that. So a lot of things, I get information, what resonates with me. I get information from other people, but I don't take everything. It's like what resonates with me and then leave the rest. So take what I need, leave the rest. But he was saying in one video I watched, and I do want to get his books and stuff, but he was just talking about how it's not like, don't call it addiction. Like, don't necessarily call it addiction or a problem. I really like that. It's a behavior, which it is. Like, drinking is a behavior. Shopping, gambling, sex addiction, food addiction, all that is a behavior. That's a poor behavior that we just picked up along the way. So addiction is just the behavior to try to help you suppress your emotions. So again, I just wanted to back up to, because I don't think I stated this very clearly. That's what I was talking about, the quitting caffeine group. And a lot of the time I will come back to what I was saying, like, oh yeah, like once I calm down and realize like, it's okay that you're feeling this way. It's okay that you're getting all worked up. It's just those hormones, it's just those stress hormones that you're used to feeling this way, when you get all, and you have so much to say and all these things. It's not, and I'll finish with this, it's not I was going to say something else. It's not the drugs that were suppressing anxiety and depression and all the symptoms. I want to be clear about that. It's not like that's who we are when I say drugs suppress emotions or repress emotions. Suppress. It's repress and suppress, right? See, and also I just wanted to say one thing. So like as I'm talking, I'm also thinking like, oh, so-and-so could be watching this if I put this video out. And then I'm already in my head thinking what they're thinking. Like that, it's anxiety, first of all, but it's also a learned behavior. that gets stuck with the addiction and the anxiety. I really believe that. But, and again, the drugs cause their own issues and keep it stuck. But okay, so it's really, I just wanted to say all that because I'm trying to be so authentic to where I'm not trying to get on here and act all perfect. Not right now. Maybe one day I'll be more perfect. Why do we even want to get to perfect anyway, you know? I just have these things that still happen to me, sweating, 15 thoughts running in my head, and I want to be as authentic as I possibly can. You know, maybe I turn red, maybe I get sweaty, maybe, you know, sweat in different areas, have the thoughts, have the blank, maybe I'll blank out. That's when you get real nervous. Like you can just blank and you forget all the 15 thoughts that were in your head. And so I want to be like, it's so cool to be where I am now because it's like, ooh, I still have this, I still have that. I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. And to know what it is instead of like, oh, I'm dumb, I'm broken, I have problems, I'm never going to get better. That's why it's so, the never going to get better and I'm stuck like this forever. No. You quit substances, you let everything unravel, you let everything rewire, and it takes time. It can take years for some people. Maybe it doesn't take you years, and that's great. And that's a whole nother thing with this whole um, recovery and healing is that people want to sit there and tell you no, it's not what it is, and they want to tell you there's no way you can still be healing after X amount of time. It's going to take as long as it takes for all the different factors, the things you learned in childhood, all the behaviors, the drugs you were on, your genetics. I do believe genetics does play a factor, is a factor for sure. But it's all of these things. And it's the way you feel in the moment, but it's just the nervous system and it's just stress hormones. And they're all trying to communicate and talk. And the certain neurotransmitters are growing back. And, you know, because drugs cause certain neurotransmitters to go up and down, just like I said earlier, the GABA. And I said alcohol with GABA, but I didn't say the other substances with what neurotransmitter they work on. So, like the stimulant more so. Because the alcohol is a calming, works on the GABA. The stimulants work on the gas, which is like the dopamine and the glutamate. And so if we're on certain substances, and if one neurotransmitter's off, they're all off. And I guess I go into talking about stuff like this, the nerdy stuff, because it's where I can calm down. So I notice that I do that a lot. I do it when I'm out and about with other people. They might not want to hear it. Somebody watching this might not want to hear it, but it helps me like kind of ground myself and calm down. But anyway, so that's why people go on tangents and stuff, I think, because that's just the process of the stress hormones and everything. And I think that's so beautiful. And this is my first video. I know I'm going to put this out here or out there or in your, whoever's watching, I'm putting it out in the world. And that's exciting, but also making me very nervous. And so again, when I have made all my other videos, I don't talk like this. And somebody might be like, oh God, something's wrong with her. Yeah, I'm recovering. Yeah, something's wrong. It's not something's wrong. It is healing. It is recovery. And I know that in time, my thoughts will be more collected. They'll be more clear. Maybe and I did kind of write notes today, but I'll have everything like do. And I just wanted to start making videos because I've been saying it, if you know me, for so long. Like even before I went through quitting and went through all this recovery stuff and healing stuff, I was talking about making videos, but I didn't even know like where to start. I just knew I wanted to talk about addiction, and which now I say is a behavior, but anxiety, depression, PMS, hormonal stuff. And I think we use our hands. I mean, people do when they learn how to communicate for communication, but I think that is also kind of a busy thing, like being busybody. I think it helps us to stay on track. But intestinal issues, PMS, all that, stress, So I've been talking about that for forever. But here I am. I was like, you've got to do it no matter if you're nervous or not. So that's why I'm just all over the place right now because I'm like, I have got to put this out here. And hopefully, other people that are going through the same types of stress or adrenaline or whatever can relate and it resonates. And it's like, yeah, I've got that too. And guess what? Nothing's wrong with you at all. It's just a pattern of stress cycle and adrenaline and cortisol coming out. Now, is this good for me to do that? Because here's another thing. It's like, oh, but those stress hormones is bad for your body. But I'm not going to talk for forever. When we're on caffeine and other substances, those stress hormones get raised like all day. And stress, acute stress is good. Going to the gym, taking a cold shower, whatever. And so by doing this, it's like, well, no, I shouldn't make a video because then my stress hormones are going to come out and then I'm going to feel stress and it's going to come through my body and it's going to go all through my body. But I really believe I'm teaching my brain I'm safe. Like this is okay. And then you get used to it. But I do think at the beginning of quitting, going through recovery, you're having all those stress hormones pumping out anyway that you don't know what's up and down. It's like, is it the recovery? Is it because of these patterns? So even for me right now, I'm talking about patterns and behaviors, but is it still my healing too? Yeah. In a year or two, can I just get on here and make a video and like not even feel that way? Maybe, I don't know. Or I'm going to have to do what I'm doing right now and just bite the bullet. Is that the right word? I'm just going to have to just do it, go for it, feel a little bit of stress. And I just feel like I'm in the right place now. It just took me to here to do it. And then I teach my brain, everything's fine. But it's really not always just about teaching the brain that you're fine, because when you're going through recovery, it's time anyway. But I do think that while we're going through the ups and downs, and believe me, I'm getting back to like why it's tricky to not say like masking or suppressing for other reasons besides what I'm saying it for, because I'm very compassionate and very sensitive, not just sensitive, but I'm very understanding about that. So I'm not forgetting that. Because I know I'm going on my tangent because of my stress hormones. Let's just say, for example, when I was going through this in the beginning and I went to the doctor and they were like, you're fine. Like, because I thought I was, things were wrong with me. I didn't know what was happening. And I would go to the doctor. They would do all the blood work. I'd go back. They're like, you're fine. It's just anxiety, right? But they didn't say why it was anxiety. I didn't know like the whole process and everything. And just them telling me I was okay, even though it was anxiety, which is kind of a big deal, a little bit, not really a big deal, but like that is what you're going through. It calmed me down and it just made me feel like I was walking on clouds. Like I remember one time my mom went with me. I go in, my heart's pounding, I'm nervous, I'm talking about everything under the sun. Telling the doctor I want to get everything out to the doctor because I don't want anything to be missed, because I'm afraid maybe if I miss something, if I don't say everything, that something's going to be missed. And that's another reason why we talk a lot, I think, with anxiety, just when we're sharing with other people in general. And that's another reason why we interrupt. And some people think it's ADHD. It's just the nervous system, like to me. Like maybe some people do have some underlying, I don't think so. If you're born that way, maybe. I don't know. I think a lot of it is just learned behaviors and addictions. But I'm not here to diagnose anybody. So that's obviously, But this is just my experience and my theories and stuff and what happened with me. So the doctor's like, you're fine. My mom and I are leaving the hospital or the doctor's office. And we go to the grocery store. And I felt 95%, 100%. I don't know. I just felt so good. And I'm calling my husband, I'm excited, I'm talking to him, oh, yay, I'm fine, nothing's wrong with me, all my blood works, whoa. And he's like, you just need to go to the doctor. He made a joke, and he was like, you just need to go to the doctor every morning to be told you're fine, and then you can get on with your day. But that's what's funny, it would have to be pretty much every morning, and that's why, like in Cato's videos, he said, just watch my videos, you get that reassurance, you feel really good. But then why do you feel bad the next day? Because it's still elevated. Like the stress hormones are still elevated just naturally, like in the morning, like everything's just kind of like off. Like cortisol gets really high in the morning. That's why some people feel really bad in the mornings. And so I just had a thought, like I was going to make a live, and I was thinking about other people. If I probably won't have many to read, many people on there to read their comments, but I was just thinking about how like I could not focus if I had to talk and then read people's comments and knowing that they're like thinking things. I could, I'll get there, but I was just thinking it. I just wanted to share that. But yeah, I felt really good in the moment. But the reason why it's so up and down, and it's not just like it fixed it, you know? So like when we watch Kato's videos, it doesn't just fix it right then. And going to the doctor, you feel better in the moment. But then why is it back the next day? It's because that's where your nervous system is. You are in, just because you're in that disconnected fight or flight, sympathetic, get a little nerdy with the sympathetic state, doesn't mean that you can't calm down a little bit. You can, but you're in that state though. So once you get it, just like once we do finally, which we are, going more into that parasympathetic nerdy terminology, which is the rest and digest calm state, then that's the state we're in. But when we're in that parasympathetic calm rest and digest state, it doesn't mean that we can't feel stress, right? That's life. Like that's how it works. That's design. That's there. That's what's so beautiful about anxiety and about stress. It's there to keep us safe. Like that's so huge right there. That could be like a whole nother topic. It's so true. That is designed in our life to keep us safe. Like a lot of people know that, maybe some people don't. So I'm kind of geeking out on that because it's so important, because that's why we have the two states. You know, like we're not always supposed to be in rest and digest, but we want to live in that state. We want to primarily be in that state. And when we're not, see, I'm in my head a little bit right now. That's okay. Like, it really is about stress. And then, like, when we are in that state of, of fight or flighty, we're going to be in it until we're not. But I really do believe, and so I am a little bit, like, I'm getting a little tired of talking, and I am a little bit feeling stressed, but I really think it's important. I really think I'm trying to get my point across. But when we're in that state, naturally, because that's where our brain, like once we heal from being on substances for so long and our nervous system just going into that state, and while we're going back to homeostasis, we're more so in that parasympathetic state, in that sympathetic state. We're more so in fight or flight. We are. But once we do get into the parasympathetic calm, rest, and digest state, if we're out and about and something crazy happens, we get some stress hormones, we go a little bit into that fight or flight state, but then we come back. That's why I don't have all the books that I want to get. You know, I have Caffeine Blues, but that's why zebras don't get ulcers. It's so cool, because they are living, I really believe, I haven't even read this whole book, but they are living in the parasympathetic state. They're living in that calm state. And when a tiger chases them and they run, they get all, and then they get all freaked out. They probably have I know they have some stress hormones pumping through their body. But once they survive it, the lion goes and tiger goes and does its thing. The zebra goes and it's able to drink from the lake again. Like, it's not sitting up in a tree shaking for 5 years. Like, it calms down. But the problem is we get stuck in our stress state, we're constantly having stress hormones pumping through it. And the one underestimated reason is caffeine. I really believe that just from my experience and what others have gone through. And it's just so crazy. It's so cool. But people like this doctor or this, I don't know if he's a doctor, Oliver Sacks, people that write, what's another really good book? He's a German doctor. The Body Keeps the Score. And then Dr. Gabor Mate, he has a few books and he talks a lot about childhood trauma. And Gabor Mate does talk a lot about addiction and talks a lot about alcohol and stuff and other behaviors. He doesn't just say substances and addiction. He does say it's addiction, but he talks about behaviors with it, which is what I was talking about earlier. He does say he'll say like alcohol, caffeine. I've watched a video where he's like alcohol, caffeine, blah blah blah, but he's not really talking about quitting and like going into a stress state while we quit. And that's what happens. That's why people are going. And then if we have, they're going into that state and staying there. And then that's why we all talk about like the ups and downs, which is the windows and waves, because we are going back to balance. We are going back to homeostasis. That's a whole thing. I didn't even think I was going to like go on this tangent, but I did. I don't even know where I am. Again, I'm all over the place. And that's okay. And I don't just want to make this and save it in my data bank. I really want to just share this video. Because guess what? I'm going to make lots of videos. And we'll be able to see, because the videos that I have with Ani, I know I'm talking all over the place or whatever, but I feel a little bit more comfortable because I'm with her. And it's just, even though I'm talking a lot, like it's just more flowy. And I know I'll get better at it. That's another thing I love too, is that none of us are perfect at anything right away. Maybe we might have our talents, we might have our gifts, we might have our natural creativity and like our natural, we're just better, but we don't have it all. I'm never going to be a prima ballerina. I don't think. I don't want to. And I just don't think that like, I'm never going to be an athletic swimmer. I'm never going to be an Olympic gold medalist swimmer. But I have my own special gifts. But even with those special gifts, it takes time to get good and then being better and then being the best. It takes time to be great at something. And so that's why I love how I'm feeling right now, because it's challenging, but it's exciting. It's like this is the start for me, but it's not really the start. Like I've been doing the work. For years, even when I did have those behaviors, I knew I had certain I had awareness, but I swear it was the substances that I was on was keeping them stuck on a loop because of that whole what I said earlier. I was creating chaos. I was creating the addiction I was creating the problems, the chaos to medicate it with the substances. And I just love that I can make a whole video about that. Like I love that because that's what it was. And then we just it's like in our mind like that. Like it's in a thought of like, oh, I need that beer. I need that thing. But it is also, the body becomes dependent and it'll lie to us and try to tell us that we need it. And that's a lot of where the anxiety and stuff comes from with the symptoms. Okay, before I go on any more tangents, I just want to, not only was I talking about the behaviors unraveling and the patterns, being the indentions or the unraveling part happening, even though it's unraveled, the indentions are still there, which is like that behavior is still going to kind of be stuck until it's not. And by being off of the substances, it's how you learn the new better behaviors instead of the old ones. And it takes time, but that is so cool. Like my coach always says, you're either going to do two things. You're either going to go back to substances or you're going to change. You're going to become, he doesn't really say this, but I like saying most authentic self. You're going to become your most authentic self. But where did that get shut down? From being told to shush or to not, don't say that. Like I remember I used to say things like, oh, I hate that. Like I'd be little, I was little and I would say, oh, I hate this. My mom would say, don't say hate, don't say hate. And I'd associate, okay, I'm doing something wrong. Okay, hate's a bad word. But instead of maybe, and I'm not trying to dog her for not doing it right, but maybe, I always like to use maybe if she would have said, hey, let's look at it this way, instead of don't say, instead of like telling me not to express myself, you know what I'm saying? That's a whole nother topic. I can make a series on that. Everything that I'm saying, I have little side sayings. I'm like, oh, I could talk about that in another video. I'm going to make series on them. like, so that's exciting. So before the addictions, this is really big. And this was told to me when I first started talking with my coach. The real problem was me not being able to say how I felt, me being shushed, me not being able to use my voice. And I'm like, no, my problem is caffeine. I was so adamant. And now that's where I wanted to go back to the important part, especially for people watching this that are going through anxiety because of caffeine. That maybe not for everybody, but for me, and I think for a lot of people, because throughout this journey, when I talk with people, a lot of us say how we're people pleasers. A lot of us. And I think that's really interesting that a lot of us that are going through the anxiety are having the same type of recovery, which recovery to me means coming back to ourself, our most authentic self, which is just like, it's not just quitting the substances. It's not just quitting the behaviors. It's recovery is finding our true self. And I think Gabor Mate said that. But when I heard it, I was like, that's exactly what I'm doing. And so I just want to clarify the importance of when someone says, the way I don't like it said, and the way that when I always read or heard this being said that, oh, caffeine must have been masking these symptoms or masking the anxiety, masking the depression, and I'm just a depressed person, and when I quit, that's the real me. No, like that, I would always hear that or read that, and I would just get so frustrated because I'm like, it caused it, like it caused, like the caffeine caused that. But what I think, and yes, it did, but my new perspective, and it's so important. I just want to say one thing, like even though I'm sweaty and a little nervous, my heart's beating normal. Like when I used to talk like this years ago, even on substances, my heart would be pounding. I'd be so, now I can tell I'm a little bit clamped, I'm a little sweaty. Yes, my train of thought's going all over the place sometimes. But I just want to stop and say, now that I've been talking for 48 minutes, 1 second, how much I've improved, even though I'm still improving, because that's just the way it is for me. And I think that acceptance of like, oh, I'm still healing. No, perspective shift. I am improving. It's okay. It's okay that these are still unraveling and that these symptoms are still there. My nervous system is still a little bit in that fight or flighty, but it's also more in the rest and digest. Like I sleep better. I could talk about that. That's a whole more videos about like how I'm doing now and how I am. And the reason I'm going on a tangent again is just because I want to, just because that's where I'm going. And I'm not going to edit my videos. Like this is just how I'm going to be for a while. Anyway, I'm going to talk about how I was on substances and while I was suppressing my emotions. I'm going to talk about the last 5.5 years, because I did quit alcohol for a year before I quit caffeine, but I did relapse for 2 months, a little bit with the alcohol, and then I quit everything, and then where I'm headed, and like where I've been, how I am, where I'm headed, how I feel like where I'm headed. And so, like, I don't even know how my volume is right now. I don't know how loud I'm articulate I've been, and just like my expression, and can you hear me? I don't even know. My husband's downstairs, and so sometimes when I'm making videos, I talk kind of quietly because I don't want him to hear me because I get embarrassed. So hopefully, I've been even talking talking good. Okay, just to finish because it's so important. It causes it, yes, but it does suppress emotions. So it's not masking. Like, I'm going to keep talking about this until I can have it like super clear and articulated in the most beautiful way. Because even though it suppresses emotions, it doesn't mean that we always had the anxiety and depression under the caffeine fumes. It was suppressing, it was masking exhaustion. And I've said that for forever. Like, that's the thing it was masking because that's literally what it does. Here's some nerdy stuff, which most of us know. It blocks adenosine. We have adenosine in our brain and body. And so it makes us feel less tired. Plus, it raises adrenaline and cortisol, so that's how we get our energy from caffeine. It does not give us energy. It just makes us feel stressed. It's liquid stress. And a lot of people don't know that. Oh, my caffeine has benefits. Okay, good. If it has benefits for you, but the harmful effects outweigh the benefits. The few benefits. That's just retarded. That's just like saying if you were to drink gasoline and it has one benefit to it. Like, it just doesn't. Maybe that's not a good analogy, but I'll find a better one. So when people want to sit there and say, like, and I know I'm not finished exactly saying what I want to say, but somebody's like watching this and they're like, oh, you just have mental illness. Yeah. I mean, it's not like mental illness like I was born with it. It is stress. Like, I can literally feel the stress hormones pumping through my body. Like, that's so huge to know that. Oh, something's wrong with you. You were born this way. You just have anxiety. No, I have anxiety now, but it's so much better. My heart's not pounding out of my chest. I am freestyling. Like, yes, okay, I made a few notes, but I'm freestyling and I always have. I think I'm doing pretty well. I'm just being very honest with how I'm feeling at the moment. But guess what? I got up this morning. I drove to the grocery store. I went to the grocery store and shopped. I drive hours. I go to the beach. And I know I'm not trying to like prove like, oh, I'm better, I'm okay. It's just really interesting to me, the naysayers, but something I'm really, I used to always say like navigating through the naysayers, but it's not even really having to navigate through them. I do like that. I mean, it is learning how to not worry or whatever, but the perspective that we kind of need naysayers, it, like, it takes naysayers to make us stronger or something. Like, I'm learning all that, but, and then just the whole, I want to just bring in the whole, not religious, but just my spirituality and my relationship with God and how I've always had that, but how it's growing more and more, and how He made us in His image. And so, like, the way that we are is perfect. It's just substances have caused us, and those behaviors for whatever reason in our childhood just caused us to kind of, I like to say, like, go off track for a while. And now, like, for me with my story and my example is I'm getting back on the path. And I really do believe that it was all there for a reason, lessons and stuff, but it wasn't necessarily so I could save others. It was to save myself. And the only reason I had those behaviors was it's what I learned in childhood. I don't think it's like, oh, it all happened for a reason. I mean, it just happened. Maybe it did happen for a reason, but that was my childhood. That was the path I took just to help me um, survive the best way I could. Like, I really think all those behaviors are kind of cool because it helped me get through the day. And now I'm learning better behaviors so I can have the most optimal life. And I think a lot of people, so many people, go off path because it's just it was what they were given in the moment to survive. I think that's really cool because not all of us were given the information right away. So I just want to again go back to what I was saying about we weren't born, just like when Gabor Mate says, we weren't born with ADHD. It was learned through like year 1 to 3. It was a survival skill, basically. It's still the nervous system. So it's still anxiety, but it's all the nervous system. And I used to say under anxiety's umbrella, those are just the symptoms, but it's under the nervous system's umbrella. Are you under the parasympathetic, the rest and digest? Are you under the sympathetic, fight or flight? Which state are you under? And all those symptoms, calm, loving, all of them, I could list them all, and I'll do a whole video about that. Or anger, rage, resentment, in the rest and digest, or the fight or flight, rest and digest. So which state are you in and why? Like really getting to that root cause. And then when we figure it all out, usually it's substances because it's been suppressing, plus it's been messing up the neurotransmitters, the hormones, and da-da-da-da-da. Going into allostatic. Now we're going into we're in allostasis. Now we're going into homeostasis. I know I'm going off. It's okay. Going into homeostasis, all of that, which takes time, especially after having these behaviors for X amount of time. For me, 30 plus years. So if I've had all these behaviors with the alcohol and the caffeine, plus the people pleasing and all the other behaviors, do you really think it's going to take the nervous system a couple months to just rewire? No way. Because then, like for me, I like to say like the first 3 years, I was kind of in a coma with all this recovery. Then we're out and about, we're dealing with all kinds of different people. All those behaviors are in play, right? They're still there, even though they're unraveling. And then you feel a certain way from it. It's like, oh my God, that person said something to me and I felt this way. And I'm just like, I care what they think and I'm worrying. And then you get all woo. And then your brain's like, go drink or go take some caffeine or, not even if you're craving it or anything. It's just, you get all worked up. But as long as you stay away and you don't give in to that frustration, that's when everything starts to really unravel more and more. So you almost need that uncomfortable situation to occur to teach you you're fine, nothing happened. It's time to get to the next day. Because like in the moment you feel so bad, or I would. And I'm not, and again, like I wasn't even thinking, oh, I want to go drink. I was just very stressed. But I really believe it's that whole pattern of that vicious cycle of getting upset over something so trivial. And I'd say, I'm like, this is so trivial. This is so, what's my favorite word? This is so petty. Like, why am I so upset? Because there's that saying, it's water off a duck's back. Or don't sweat the small stuff. Because there's sometimes where I can be like water off a duck's back, and I call it water off a duck's back. Well, just water off a duck's back. But the saying, don't sweat the small stuff, it's all small stuff. Like we say that, right? It's like, don't sweat the small stuff, but it's all small stuff because it really is. But yet, why are we making all this small stuff and all this, what we like to say, this petty stuff, a big deal? And I really believe it's just that vicious cycle of addiction, of behaviors until we unravel. And how do we get them to truly unravel? Stay completely free. Even chocolate. Hello. Lonnie and I talk about that all the time. People are not feeling good after 2 or 3 years. They start drinking, or they're feeling a little bit better and they want to celebrate. So they go to alcohol, they go to weed, they start having chocolate, whatever. They're smoking cigarettes. Or they go back to coffee. I don't know. But a lot of people were noticing they're going back to chocolate. And I know that my coach says that that's okay. That's, I believe and trust 98, 99% of some of the stuff he says, or most of the stuff he says. But that right there is not something I believe, and that's just me. Ani doesn't believe it. It does have caffeine. It has other chemicals. The chocolate. Why do women like crave chocolate around their period? Because a lot of healing is happening around our period. Men crave chocolate too, but I'm just using this as an example because I'm a woman and I know that I used to crave chocolate around my cycle. There's a lot of healing and emotions processing during our period. And if we crave the chocolate because it's hard, those emotions coming out, ooh, I don't want to feel that. So what do? We go and we get a pint of ice cream, chocolate ice cream, or a cake, or some type of treat, the sugar too, but usually it's got caffeine, the chocolate, or a chocolate bar, because it helps you, it soothes you. So I can make a whole video too about like how we need to self-soothe, how as kids, because of our parents, and this goes back all to childhood stuff, if they had anxiety or depression or their nervous system was off, we can't self-soothe at a certain age. So we need them to do that for us. Then when we become a certain age, and then we also can't regulate our nervous system. So we don't know how to self-soothe. So what do I do even now where all my emotions, because like for the last, I'd say year, all my emotional stuff, and it was coming out in the beginning too, but I didn't really have the capacity to worry about it. I had other symptoms and rewiring happening. So I'd say for like the last year and a half, all these emotions have been coming out. What do? I get really upset about something, again, making a bigger deal out of it than what it is. Why? And I would call upset, crying, not being able to regulate. Why am I sweating the small stuff? Like, this is so petty. I would say it. This is so petty. It's really not that big of a deal, but I'm blowing it out of proportion because that's a behavior. I know I'm repeating myself, but I also think I'm saying some pretty good stuff. But I don't know if I was completely clear about how, yeah, so that's what I was saying about what Gabor Mate said with ADHD, how anxiety is also a learned behavior only because of our nervous system and the suppressed emotions later with the substances, but then the substances cause their own nervous system dysregulation and hormone. And so you start to notice at a certain point where it is about the emotions resurfacing so they can process out because we've been suppressing them. And that's what it felt like when I was on substances. I would get upset, like I said, and I would go to get beer or get cigarette. I'd already been on caffeine on it. And so I'd go and I'd get upset about something, and I'd go get a 6-pack, or either I'd go drive to my friend's bar. I did this a lot. Or I'd just go to a bar. But let's just use this for my story for the example. I would get really upset about something, drive out to go buy a pack of cigarettes because it was cheaper than buying it at the bar, and then I'd get there and it would be kind of slow when I got there. So I'd talk with her and then it would get busy and she'd be running around making drinks. I got someone to my right. I got someone to my left. I got someone behind me. I'm talking away, I'm drinking. I would get there and I would talk with her about my really big problem. It wasn't really big. My big problem. And probably talk for like an hour, smoke the cigarettes, blah, 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 blah. And then, so someone to my right, someone to my left, we're joking and smoking, and then by the time I realize it's 2 a.m, I'm drunk. And I just bitched about my problem. I put all those toxins in my body, and I never figured it out. Because I just bitched. I put substances in my body. And even let's just say that it's not alcohol. Let's just say that someone that's watching this only consumes caffeine. All drugs suppress emotions. And even here's something that's really cool. It does it mentally, psychologically, and it does it physically. So, for example, how it does numb us. It numbs our exhaustion, but also it can numb our pain. And as a massage therapist, I would trade with another therapist, and I would tell her, dig in my back, just use your elbow. I couldn't feel. I'd be like, just dig, dig, dig. And I'd always say, it's like I have nervous system. I mean, it's like I have nerve damage. And she'd be just like, okay, whatever. And I would say that out loud. I would say it to myself. It's like I have some type of nerve damage. Or clients that wanted a really deep massage, I'd always be like, golly, like they can take so much pressure. It's like nerve damage or something. Well, so because of my experience of quitting, not on any substances, especially caffeine, no chocolate, nothing, I am so sensitive to touch now. Just even a little thumb, I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I mean, I'm sensitive everywhere, okay? Which I wasn't before. You take a jackhammer. Well, just even the littlest bit of pressure, and I'm just like, whoa. Like I was numbed. My nerves were numbed. And I feel everything now. That's what drugs do. They suppress. So I feel my emotions. I feel physical. So many things are adjusting in my body. Totally make a video about that. But I just want to, okay, so I want to just take a moment. What am I feeling right now in my body? I'm hot. I'm sweaty. I'm tired. Just talking about all this is it's draining because I still think that I am in that place where I feel like I do kind of have to prove myself. But that's where I'm at right now. I think that later I'll be able to make videos and talk about other things that I want to talk about. But helping people, just like, okay, so I'm not just talking about symptoms anymore, right? Like Ani and I both say that. We're not sitting there going, oh, I have this or that, because that's so much better. That's why we're not talking about it. But there was a time where that's all we could talk about because that's what we were healing from in that moment. Now we have leveled up because of where we're at in our recovery, and it's different. We're evolving. And so just talking about, like I had written this out, about letting go, that's a whole nother topic I want to talk about. But it all kind of stems from behavioral stuff and mindset. But I'll tell you this, and this is when I was saying it's so tricky to say, oh, drugs suppress emotions, but it's not masking who we really are, kind of thing. We're not depressed and anxious. We're not. That's what I know. It's not masking. It's just that when it suppresses the emotions, all of that come out. We're having to deal with it also with our nervous system. We got all this shit going on because of the allostasis going back to homeostasis. There's so many different aspects in it all. There's so many different layers to it that only when you go through it from the way that it was before, quit cold turkey, go through what I've been through, give it 4.5, 5 years, can you talk on it like this? And I know I just had vocal fry because I'm tired. I don't know if a lot of people have vocal fry because they're tired or if it's just a behavior. I don't know. Maybe a little bit of both. But that's kind of where I'm at now. So before we were talking about the symptoms more so, and it wasn't just that. The way I look at it, we weren't just talking about it to help other people, but we were able to help other people in the process. We're also talking about it because we were still going through the symptoms, or we had just been there. And so it's like, oh yeah, I had this, I had that, and now I'm doing so much better. We have the video about depression and intrusive thoughts and all of that, insomnia, because we were in that coma for 3.5 years. We start coming out of the coma, talk about the symptoms and how much better we're doing. Now, at 4.5 and a little past 4.5, we're talking more about the emotional side coming out and the physical, because emotion and physical go together. And that's where all this other stuff, the behavioral stuff and the emotions. And so, yeah, so all of that is happening now. That's because that's where we're at now. And there was the biggest part of me that wanted to wait and make videos until I was 100%. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not going to do that. This is where I am. Am I 100% now? I'm not. But that's okay because I know the improvements are there. I know I'm elevated up. I always say I'm in a new phase up. We cannot, there's no way that the body can heal all at once for so many different reasons. You know, it's not just it may even go in so many different reasons. Like I might rewatch this and think, okay, I don't like that. Oh, that's something really good. Or my vocal fry. Whatever we don't like. Okay, so if it's a behavior that's still unraveling, or so is talking like that a behavior? Maybe, I guess so. It's like a habit, or like I said, because I'm tired, a little bit tired. What I love is whatever we don't like, as long as we stay free, then it's not going to be there because we don't like it and we're not going back to the substance to suppress it or keep that behavior happening. So I love that. So even if it's a symptom of depression, I know how awful it can be. If it's any type, anything that we're questioning and that we don't like, in time, it's going to rewire or unravel. And it is rewiring and it is unraveling. Even when we're on substances, we're aware, like I said earlier, I was aware of things, but I could not, it was just cycling. Every month, period, terrible, PMS, terrible, because I was just stuck, literally, because I was on the substances. When we quit and our symptoms get turned up 1,000 volumes, we all say, we're stuck like this. I feel stuck like this because it's so intense. But no, it's just more intense because so much more healing is happening. And we're not stuck anymore because if you're free, you have to be free from all substances. And if you relapse, whatever, that's part of it too. That's not even, don't beat yourself up. Just get right back up. But I really believe that it was processing, cycling through, and now it's processing out. But that processing out is hard. That's why most people don't quit everything. It's fucking hard. I will cuss. It is so hard. But so worth it because the time is going to go by anyway. I'd rather it be hard in recovery, back to myself, than hard in addiction. Because addiction and behavior, poor behaviors, yes, they're there to kind of get us through the day. That's what we know. But once we know better, we got to do better. And I just hope that for people who haven't quit yet, that can plant a seed, but you got to do the work. No one can do it for you, not one person. And I tell you, here's another thing before I go. If someone gives somebody an intervention, which is out of their intention is good, it's never going to really, I don't think, maybe for some people, but that person really had to have wanted it anyway. They relapse because they just don't have it in themselves yet. And again, situations, circumstances can vary. But I really think it's because that person really was ready. And I just don't think sometimes people are not ready. I talk about this all the time. Well, this is my first video, but I've talked about it with Ani, but I talk about it all the time, think about it all the time. If people don't feel ready, then a lot of the time it means they just don't feel safe. And again, so if they have certain traumas and emotions and things that they're suppressing for a reason, they're using those substances for a reason. And if they quit, all that shit's going to come out. It's going to be super hard. And so I'm not saying don't quit, but I think if I would have known before, I would have loved to had taken courses or taken some type of therapy or some type of journaling and knew about my behaviors of people pleasing and worrying about what others thought and stuff and like all my past before I quit. And I kind of was already. But I really do think that no matter how much awareness we have, though, if we're still using substances, we can't really get to the true freedom. We can have that awareness, but it's going to keep, again, it's going to keep intentionally, like it's going to inevitably process through if you're on the substance because you're going to keep your same behavior. Even though you're aware, it's just like what I was saying earlier, it's going to unravel off the substances. So if you're on them, it's going to keep you in that same behavior cycle because they go together. The addiction behavior and the behavior, the habit, they work together. And so again, all the awareness in the world, all the therapy in the world, that's wonderful. But it's really when we quit the substances that we can become free. And that's what's so important to know about the whole rewiring process when we quit. We don't just quit and it's magic. Oh, we quit. And no, that's why it's so hard to quit. And that's why relapse is so prevalent. Is that the right word? Prevalent is so common because people don't realize like you have to like staying free like every single day. Like sometimes we get to a place where the further we're free, it seems like it's getting harder because the cycle is wanting to continue. And that's when you have to stick with it, not relapse. I'm fighting. And then it slowly starts to, the anxiety and all the hard stuff and all the stuck behaviors slowly starts to unravel and everything starts to get better because you did the part of staying free. You don't go back. That's never the answer. Even if it takes 5, 6, 7 years. And I don't really like looking at it that way with like the time, but it does take time. That's important. It is important to talk about that because I know a lot of people at 3, 4 years, like I was saying earlier, they go back to something because they're just not quite like they're in a gray area or they're letting certain petty shit upset them, getting all upset. I need to go fucking smoke a cigarette or whatever. You have that mentality. Like I used to talk like that. I need a fucking cigarette. I talked like that. I know people that talk like that. I need a effing cigarette. All mad, all pissy. And you are. That how you feel in that moment is very real. Okay, I'll say one other thing before I go. And I'll keep talking about this for a while. I made up this thing where I said, I don't believe in depression. I don't think depression's real. I said that. And I said it to a neighbor. And then I even said it in this group that I went to that I couldn't do it anymore. It was too, I should have stuck with it probably, but it was causing me a lot of stress. And that's how I knew should have stuck with it. But I made the mistake. It was a mistake by saying I didn't believe depression was real. Which I think I wanted to kind of spark some interest by saying that or something because I don't think it's a state. It's a depressed state, deep rest. We need usually because depression, if you look it up, it's not an emotion. It's not like sadness or anger or rage or fear or love or happiness or joy. It is a state of the body, which is so cool. I love this. And usually what I've learned is because we're tired. It's because we're exhausted and we need rest. And so it's designed to keep us down. So it's like you're not allowed to go play anymore. Like the body will do it for us. It's amazing. So that state that we're in, it's not bad. It's amazing. It's amazing that the body's like, you're grounded. It's like literally like a grounding until we become grounded, solid ground, in the right way. But people are running amok, doing doing the substances because, and it's not bad. We're not bad that we get that way. It's just we're trying to not feel bad for whatever reason. She talks about that. I can talk about that more. So the symptoms of depression are very real. And that's why I started off saying that I don't believe it's real, because I really wanted to get the attention, and I just kind of said it that way. And oh man, that gets, when somebody has gone through depression and they're still in it, not good. They're like, they shut down. But I still want to say it that way because I really believe in what I believe. And I think that the answers are in the truth. But when you're in it and you don't have the awareness of what it really is and you're going through it, it can feel really shitty. Like I'm not, like I wasn't, like, especially in that group, it was just 3 other girls. Like they're not being heard or understood. And I'm like, oh, and I told them, I said, no. I was like, I was there. Like I totally understand and get and have empathy and understand what you're saying. I just don't believe that we have to live with depression. And they were still mad. Because they're like, well, no, because I've lived with it for da 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 da. And I'm like, yeah, but you're not understanding about substances. And this one lady was on like tons of caffeine. And she's like, well, I need my coffee. Da, da, da. And I'm like, you're sitting here talking about this, and this from your childhood. You're talking about the caffeine, not even talking about other substances. I have no idea if she was on those or not. And then the fact that people can quit and go through even more anxiety and depression symptoms, and then it can take 1 to 5, however long. I don't want to talk about the time. Just it can take however long it takes for your body to heal. It's like, you know, and I can talk about that now because of where I'm at, because I know it's rest. I was exhausted. My nervous system, my adrenals, the HPA axis, all of it just off, right? Because of substances, because I was suppressed. So all the things that I'm talking about the suppressed emotions, that is part of it. But all the other stuff about post-acute withdrawal and the rewiring and the exhaustion and everything, people that are consuming substances are not absorbing nutrients. You're not getting good deep sleep. And most of us, it's happening for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, 10 years, however long. And so I think it's really beautiful to say depression doesn't have to be in you, but you have to do the work, and it takes time, and you're the only one that can do it. And that was my whole point. And I'm until it's doesn't resonate with me, I'm going to keep saying it like that. Like, but when we do, when our body is in that state of needing rest, and we have done certain things to try to, and and believe me, before I knew anything about caffeine, I was the most clueless person about caffeine. I thought I had to have it to give me energy and to keep me going and to boost me. And I remember even saying, because I was in withdrawal for a day, because we're withdrawing immediately when we wake up, we're already in withdrawal. I'd go to Starbucks and get my coffee, and then I'd be like, happy-ish, until I was irritable and ragey. But I'm like, oh, I'm ready to go. And so, of course, what most everyone thinks, I need it to feel good. Like, I just remember thinking like that. That is so awesome. How I am, like where I am now and how I think of it now compared to how I thought of it then. I really believed it was helping me, not hurting me. And so people sit there and talk about there's benefits to it. I mean, even my best friend, she's like, oh yeah, but 1 cup. I'm like, okay, whatever. I mean, believe what you want. I know that I'm doing what's best for my body with that. I know there's other things I can do. Like I wrote it down. I'll just put this out there. I really want to try hard to not use plastics. I want to look into canning. Like I think that's really cool, like preserving food and canning. I know that's going to take some looking into. Natural clothes, like wearing more natural instead of synthetic, cotton and linen, and just being more abundant, just knowing that I'm abundance. I'm already abundant. and not being afraid. I'll have all these like money beliefs, which I think a lot of people do, which keep us like pouring down, and like the abundance is in us. So cool. Um, and I want to have chickens. I want to have chickens and have fresh eggs. So maybe a little land. So those are just some like goals and some dreams. Um, I'm motivated. Like I was never motivated before. Okay, here's one last thing. An hour and 25 minutes I've been talking. That's okay. Um, it freezes here once or twice a year. In Texas, usually like once in January, and then like a really big freeze in February if it does freeze. And we have like 80, 50 to 80 to given on a given day, like potted plants. So I think we've lost a few, but we lost a few in the freeze of 2021. And it has taken some of them. We lost like two or three, like completely. They just didn't come back. But some, just the roots didn't die, so they grew back, which I think is just so beautiful. I just think nature can teach us so much about life. Anyway, it gets to freezing last night, and have to move the plants in, and been doing this for years before even quitting everything. And before I quit, it was like a drag, it's like something I had to do, and even um, even in this recovery, it was hard. Like there was some years where I was just, especially in the wave, and then my husband has to help me talk about a drag. Plus, I was just like exhausted. So last night, I'm doing it, and it felt so good. Like I felt in the moment, I felt like what I'm doing is what I'm supposed to be doing. It didn't feel like a chore or a drag. And I was a little tired, but it just felt like it was what I was supposed to be doing. And I had like motivation behind it, or I felt like there was purpose in it. And all the leaves and all the debris from the year is all underneath all where the plants were. So I'm going to like organize and clean that up. And like I was thinking about that, and that was making me so excited, and I just felt so much motivation behind it. But while on caffeine and alcohol, I would have to have a Monster when I was doing stuff like that, or I would buy a six pack. Like when I even like cleaning the house, I always had to have the substance be the motivation. Like I had to have it in me to get going. Yesterday, it was just me, but it took me all this time. I mean, there's ups and downs on this journey. So we have moments where we're doing really good, and then we have moments where it's like, it doesn't feel like it's as good because there's a lot of healing happening. But all I know is the way I felt yesterday and the way I've been feeling more and more and more. And it just felt so good. And there was no fake artificial boost of dopamine, fake motivation. It was all me. It felt so natural and so good. And I'm telling you, that's why it's worth it. That's why when people go through, they quit, they go through the worst of the worst, all the symptoms, all the healing, and they can sit there and say that the journey was worth it. Like that, like I always remember hearing that from people ahead of me. And I was like, how could they go? And I know that they went through some shit because of their language was exactly like mine. And that's what we love about the groups, they're saying things that none of our people in our life that haven't gone through it are saying. Our people are saying all the wrong things, right? And these people are saying, they're speaking our language. So I knew that they knew some shit because it was just like what I'd went through from their language. And they said it was worth it. And I'm just like, okay. And I held on to that. And another word I loved, or phrase I loved, was I promise. Oh, I would just hold on to that. And just time. And when people, it's time, time, time. And when people think time, they might think a year or two. Like people that are going through this for 2 weeks, a month, and they're like, when am I going to get better? They're hoping and maybe it is going to get better for them in a few months. But when you really think about what we've been doing to our body, and with caffeine, we didn't know. So give yourself that grace, and just let this process, don't look at it as a waste of time. I know someone who is very dear to me, but their language is kind of these last however many years has been a waste of my life. And I look at it like I'm free from the substance that caused all this, that caused me to suppress my emotions, that caused me to have PMS, and that caused my stress hormones to rage through my body and be pumped up and cause the stress. And I'm free. And now I've been healing and I get to live the rest of my life free in the most thriving life, when if I would have stayed on it, it just would have been worse and worse and worse. So I know it's hard, but the hard is what's getting you to the freedom. Truly, truly, truly. Okay, an hour and a half of talking. I think that's pretty good for my first video. This was good. I really am going to send this. It's that's so cool. So funny how I'm just freaking out about it. Like, it's just people. What was I told? Life is easy. It's people that make it hard. And another thing I love a saying is that expectations cause disappointment. So it's just, in life, we just got to do what we got to do. Now I'm just talking all crazy, but I'm feeling now that I remember that I'm actually going to be talking to somebody, I'm a little bit nervous again. Like, I got into the rhythm of just being with me and being in the moment, because that's what it is to like truly live life. And that's what drugs cause us to not do, is live in the moment. People are always talking about live in the now, and there's that really good book, Life in the Now. What is it? Oh, it's so good. What is it? I am going to make a video about all the books. I haven't read them all, but I know that they're good. In the Now? Oh man, I feel so embarrassed. Eckhart Tolle. What's his name? I should know how to pronounce that better. Eckhart Tolle. Living in the Now. Dang it. Okay, I'm going to take a second to look it up, because it's okay. It's okay that I don't know. See, we need to just be compassionate, give ourselves grace. Like, okay, I know I knew the name before, but just because I've misplaced it, that's okay. The Power of Now, right? Is it The Power of Now? I didn't even see it, but I think it's The Power of Now. I'm sure there's people, if I ever have anyone watching this, are going to be screaming to the screen what the name of the book is. I think it's called The Power of Now. Just a second. See, this would be good where if I was going to I think it is called The Power of Now. Yeah, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. If I were to edit, that would be a good time to edit, where I have that space of and that's what's so funny about people editing. It's like they're editing out their mistakes. They're editing out, and I guess people don't want really, really long, drawn out hour and a half videos. But I tell you what, the people that are going through recovery, they do. They want the video to be a day long. So I'll make shorts. And I'll make medium-sized videos, and I'll make 10-minute videos, and I'll make hour videos, but it'll get better and better. I just wanted to get started today, and I'm really excited about that. I'm going to send this. I don't think it gets sent off until like 24 hours maybe. But this is me. My name's Mandy Bartell. I don't even think I said my name. Well, my name's Mandy Bartell. I will make other videos. I'll introduce myself. I will explain more. I'll tell my story. I do want to write a book, and I am going to write a book. Excuse me. That's a whole thing too. Just putting myself out there. This is the time. It's time. I've done the work with all my knowledge and experience and awareness, and it's just time. It's just time for me to share. And the thing that I love, that makes more and more and more sense to me, that, like some people, when they're afraid of what others are going to think, if you don't put yourself out there, no one will find you, right? And if the naysayers are going to say something, that's what I was saying earlier. Like the naysayers are a part of it, but you have to put yourself out there if you want to be out there. We all have something to say. So, oh yeah, it's a little new to me. And is that ego? I want to make a video about that. Is that ego or is that just the nervous system? Is that just being kind of in a little bit of a fight or flight state? Um, and when we think about ego, I don't know. I think it's the nervous system. I think it's behaviors. Because I know a lot of people talk about ego and egotistical. It's like, oh, I'm just so worried about what people think. It's not that I'm worried about what people think. I'm kind of just like worried about what I think. It's the state of my nervous system. And I'm just ready to put it all out there now. Okie doke. Yeah, I'll explain who I am later, blah, 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 and all my stories and all my things and all my dreams and hopes and wishes. And I wish everybody well. And I hope that this does resonate, and I hope that I could plant a seed. Just do your best, and God bless.